Now that we've discussed each of those three scenarios, I want to bring our attention back to the flow chart we looked at the beginning of the presentation. Now, I know that this flow chart is very overwhelming, so if we consider it color by color and just really break it down, hopefully it will make a little bit more sense and we can talk about that application piece, right? So now we're going to talk about, okay, well, I understand each color better now, but how do I apply it? So remember, the first thing that you want to do is establish your goal. You need a clear goal. You need to establish a purpose of why you're going to do that assignment. That purpose needs to be clarified to the students. That student needs to know, if they're sitting at home completing a homework assignment, why they are doing it and why it is useful. Now, once you have that goal, you have to just kind of really, based on evidence, decide where your students are, which color they fall in. Now, you're going to have some students in red who are lacking the skills necessary to complete the assignment. If that's the case, I'm not going to send this recipe assignment home for them to complete. It would be pointless, right? If my goal is to identify real world connections of proportional relationships, well, if they can't scale up a ratio or a recipe, right? How are they going to meet that goal? They're not. So what will I do instead? Well, I might bring them together in class in a small group. I'm going to take my red students and provide them with differentiated instruction, small group and support. Give them the tools, the extra encouragement, the skills that they need so they can ultimately become yellow and green. Remember, just because we've identified a student as maybe being in that red section doesn't mean they're going to stay there. And we don't want that. We want our students in red to have the same opportunities as the students in yellow and green. We want our students in red to experience that task that's going to deepen their love of math. We have to. That's where we're providing an equitable classroom experience. So in this particular lesson here with the recipe, if we know our students cannot scale up a recipe, maybe we will think back to a target we've already covered, which they were successful. So we can think back of about one of their strengths and talk about how we can use that strength to teach the weakness of this goal here. So maybe what we're doing is we're connecting those two targets together. We're connecting a strength that was evident from prior learning. We're connecting that strength in hopes that since we know that they're struggling with this content here, hopefully by connecting it to that previous target, hopefully it will deepen their understanding and move them more towards the yellow or green. We talked about how we're going to have students in yellow and how that means that they can only somewhat complete the tasks. We talked about how our students in yellow really need dynamic tasks that provide instant feedback and scaffolded support. So important. Remember, our students in yellow are still trying to develop their learning there. And we know that our students in yellow are going to either move to red or move to green. And we need to do everything we can to ensure that those students in yellow move to green. So how do we do that? We want to make sure that every assignment we give gives instant feedback. But more than just telling them whether they're right or wrong, we also need to make sure that we're giving some sort of scaffolded support. We need our students to understand that, one, they got the question wrong, and two, exactly what to fix it at the exact right time. Now, as far as application to this recipe, so maybe you're in your class, you have your students in yellow. Maybe you're going to pull your students in yellow together in a small group, and together you're going to complete the part that you know they're going to struggle with. So now we've just completed part of the assignment in small groups and given them the support they needed, and then we're going to send them home, depending on our goal, with the rest of the assignment. We know that our students in yellow are going to be making mistakes, and we want them to know that that's okay. We want them to get to a point where those mistakes are turning into motivation. We don't want those mistakes to be frustration. So that's why that scaffolded support is super important for any student in yellow. Now, we also talked about how we're going to have students in green who are ready to go, who have the skills necessary to complete the project. And if that's the case, we really need to make sure that the assignment we're giving is going to deepen that student's love of math. We know that if a student can already do the math and we're giving them an assignment that they don't necessarily find value in, that's where we're going to have students turn away from math and unfortunately also turn away from those STEM careers, which is what we want to avoid. We need to make sure that if a student is in green, they can already do the foundations. We do not want to hold them back. We want to make sure that we're giving them every opportunity to extend their thinking and go deeper with that higher ceiling so that they can really build that authentic learning experience and see how the math that they're learning is important and connected to the real world. We talked about how our students in green need to make sure that they're given choice. We need to be presenting the information in different ways and allowing them to engage in different ways. We know that our students in green, they're there because they know how procedurally how to do the math. So our students in green there, what we would need to do is we would need to give them something where they can be flexible and show us what they know, but maybe more on a conceptual level, right? So maybe with this race or recipe building project, maybe our students in green are going to bring in cookies. Maybe they're going to create the recipe and give a speech to the class and share their cookies. Maybe they're going to create a PowerPoint presentation of um, of the process. Maybe they want to make a TikTok video where they're recording themselves actually making the recipe. This part in green is that's our chance. That's our chance to really help our students to develop a love of math. So we have to be flexible with how they're going to show that end goal. We want to make sure that every single student meets that end goal in a way that is just inspiring them to go deeper with math. Some of you out there might be wondering, well, what are we going to do? Because you're not going to have all your students in green at the same time. That's not going to happen. And I would say you're right, you're not. Your students are going to be in different colors, in different categories. And so it's essential that you keep in mind UDL frameworks. You have to make sure that you're offering choice. You have to make sure you're offering flexible action expression. You have to make sure that you're closely monitoring your students and giving them the support that they need, and not necessarily denying them of opportunities to complete rich and engaging tasks, but rather get the support they need first and then go on to do those tasks. Really important. So it's okay if your students are not all completing the same assignment. It's okay if they're working on different things, because ultimately what this boils down to is that end goal. We want them to make that connection of the real world experience of proportional relationships and scaling up a recipe. So we have to make sure that we are offering choice. Our assignment cannot just be every time. We have to make sure that we're varying our choices, right? We can't just make it so that everyone has to do the same homework assignment every single time. That's not going to be equitable. That's not going to meet the needs of our students. So we need to know where our students fall and also how to support them. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, that seems like a lot of work. You're right. It is a lot of work. It's really hard. It's really difficult to come up with each of those leveled assignments and figure out exactly how you can adjust the project to meet the needs of all your students. But that's what goes back to our goal. Our goal is for them to get that real world experience. So if we know that we have a ton of our students in red, or maybe a ton in red and some in yellow, maybe we just pause that for a minute and we don't give homework. Remember, your students don't have to have homework every single night. We can be flexible with that. Students need time to just go home and be a child, go play sports, go have fun, go play with your friends, go help your family, right? It's okay to not have homework assignments. In fact, that's what I did when I was in my class, my 7th graders up front, start of the year. I basically told them, look, when you're in this room, I expect you to be working hard. I need you completing your assignments and doing your very best. And if that's the case, when you leave this room and go home tonight, your math homework is going to be to be a child, is to play video games. Your math homework is going to be to help your family. And it was very interesting because it was amazing to see the um, the excitement and the motivation level that my students have in class. They would complete their assignments. They knew that they I really wanted them to make the most of our class time, and they did. And I mean, obviously we have students who were off task, right? And I'd have to go up to them and kind of remind them, look, your job at home is to be social. Your job at home is to have fun and play sports. But your job right now in this classroom is to try your very best. So we have to make sure that we're being just respectful of each student and where they are and how they learn differently, and then just realize ultimately we want our students to develop a love of math. That's what we need. When our students look back and remember our math class, we want them to remember the experiences that they had. We don't want them to look back and think, oh my goodness, all I ever did was answer questions from a textbook, because we know math is so much more than that. We have to make sure that we're really cognizant that we're giving each student the support that they need in class so that we can get to a point where we have students just really loving coming to math and knowing that pursuing a math career is more than just completing problems from a textbook, because we know math is so much more than page 6. Anyway, if you have any questions on any of these colors, please let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you later.